Alrighty, hope everyone's doing well. Welcome back to another week of Destiny 2. So, of course, kicking things off right off the bat, of course, Iron Banner is done. The week is over, so Iron Banner has left us for now and should be back within the next couple of weeks. Fun fact, by the way, did you all see that bug where apparently wearing Kepri's horn and running the Strand Suspend barricade on Titan made it so that you could instantly mercy rule other people? Yeah, that was nuts. If you didn't know, that's why sometimes you just randomly lose a game instantly after loading in, and why it was changed from zone capture to eruption halfway through the week. But I'm getting off track. Now, getting throughout the rest of the week. Now, of course, starting with the Vanguard, there is currently the Nightfall is in the Cosmodrome in the Devil's Lair, if I do recall. Actually, no, it's the Disgraced, which is slightly different. But it is basically Hive Strike, the current modifiers being all three elemental shields, Barrier and Unstoppable Champions, Arc Threat, as well as Fire Pit for acolytes spawning fire pools when defeated, the Artifact Overcharge weapons in addition to Arc Surge and Strand Surge, as well as Overcharge Glaives, and of course Galvanized as always. And if you actually wanted to run through it, you would get to the Swarm this week. The current dropping weapon is the Swarm, however not the Adept one, as that is still not open for another couple of weeks. So it will be actually next weekend. Grandmasters will be opening. So if you actually want Adepts, you'll be able to jump on them pretty soon. Now, next, nothing new in Gamut, but Crucible is where things are going a little off because we'll have Team Scorched for our Rotator game. We will have Trials back this weekend, I do believe, and it is currently boosted Valor. So, if you wanted to grind out Crucible ranks for any reason, getting additional rolls on weapons or just getting the reset done so you don't have to worry about doing it in a season, there you go. This is the time to grind some of it out. And Team Scorched, so it's sweaty but not overly sweaty. There's no, what's the word, loadout advantages. But then in terms of the rest of the world, the current farming raid is actually Deepstone Crypt. So if there's any red borders you still need from Deepstone Crypt, this is the best time to go for it. You'll always have the purchasable one at the end the first time through, but then you'll also have the rest of the encounters that can be farmed infinitely. All the challenges can be done infinitely in case you want to just get extra loot. So there you go. And in terms of our farming dungeon, I believe it is back around to Pit of Heresy this time. So if you actually want to farm out some high stat armor, this is probably one of the better places to do it. Now, while it won't be Artifice because there is no Master, if you wanted purely high stat armor, this is probably one of the better places to do it because for some reason, Pit of Heresy dungeon gear just drops at a higher stat distribution pretty consistently. Now, going through the rest of the weeks and the rotation. So, starting with our raids, in the Dreaming City, the first challenge mode available is the Forever Fight. Then in Garden of Salvation, the current active challenge mode is the 0 to 100, which I actually recall that is Sanctified Mind challenge, where basically you have to fill the moat banks to full within 30 seconds of the first bank. Then from that, don't need to check Deepstone Crypt because all challenges are active like usual farming weeks. And then into the Throne World. For Vow of the Disciple, it is currently the Looping Catalyst, which is Rolk challenge in case you wanted an extra drop from Mr. Rolk. And then into Neptune for the Root of Nightmares challenge is currently the Cosmic Equilibrium challenge, which is Planets Encounter. Basically, you have to take the two planets to the other side as opposed to ones. It's hard to explain. Basically, you have to swap light and dark in Planets Encounter, more so than usual. Then you also have Strength-focused armor for the Master mode, as well as the usual 3 shields, Barrier, Unstoppable Champions, Arc, and Strand Surge, and Overcharged shotguns in Root of Nightmares. Then, in terms of raids, lastly, the Legends tab for Vault of Glass, we have the Strangers in Time challenge, which I believe is Gatekeeper challenge. Basically, the Wyvern and the Gatekeeper have to die at the same time. And then for King's Fall, it is the Gaze Amaze challenge, where basically whoever's holding Gaze has to be in the Pool of Reclaimed Light during the Golgoroth encounter. Then, in terms of that is everything. Now, just checking in Eternity really quick for the Dares of Eternity checkup. For that, we have the Legend mode at Fallen Hive and Zydron for the rotations of that week. Now, that is everything in the terms of the main world. Now, checking with Europa, or that's not Europa, that's Neptune. For our rotations, currently the Vex Incursion Zone is a Himza Park, which also means it is the Partition Ordnance, which is that annoying one where you have to follow around the blooping orb. And then from that point as well, the weekly rotation mission is basically Desperate Measures, which is the final mission of the campaign, which, if I recall... It's weird. I could have sworn Desperate Measures was last week, but it could have just been, you know, once around the bend. Again, might have been the second to last one. But aside from that, that's all the rotations in terms of Neomuna. Now, into seasonal stuff. So, going into the Helm, we've recently got our Defiant Battlegrounds Legend mode back, so it is Cosmodrome in there. But then as well with our Deep Dive. So, Deep Dives and Salvage. I think the Salvage boss is rotated back around to be the first boss again, the Azadum one, I think. Basically, the big old knight with the runes encounter for the final boss in Salvage. And the Deep Dives are getting, spoiler, Kelgaroth again. I don't know what it is in terms of modifiers or how it's different, but I do know that it's basically just Kelgaroth again once you go through the story. And then at that point, it is pretty much just Deep Dives, and then we'll have the usual 3 boss rotation, hopefully. Maybe they'll be taken after that. I don't know. It's hard to tell it with everything nowadays. But that is pretty much the wrap up for the seasonal stuff. We still don't have that much thing. But the last thing to actually touch up about is the seasonal challenges. So we're on week 3, which starting off makes it so that, of course, complete week 3 of Into the Depths. And then we also have the Frontline Salvager 3 for completing Salvager Deep Dive activities while wielding any Season of the Deep weapon. Additionally, defeating targets with arc or strand damage anywhere in the system. Guardians granting additional progress. Now, if you don't know what a Season of the Deep weapon is, I'm not sure if dungeon weapons count, and I don't think any of my hunters... basically anything that has that little logo on the sword. So any of the Taken set of weapons or the old Reckoning / Gambit Prime weapons, if you see any of these in your inventory, basically just equip it and run through the activity that should make progress towards that challenge. Then, next up, we have Depth Charge for defeating bosses and salvage activities. I don't know if this is final bosses or if it's just boss bar enemies. Hopefully that goes quickly, or it's basically just do 5 salvages. Then aside from that, there's Short Range Salvager for defeating targets with submachine guns or swords, and defeating combatants or in Salvager Deep Dive will grant additional progress. It doesn't have to be in Salvager Deep Dives, though. You also have Nessus activities, which is basically completing bounties, patrols, public events, or lost sectors, all on Nessus. And then we have Commendation Appreciation, which is earned progress for giving commendations in Vanguard, Crucible, and Gambit activities. Basically, play a playlist activity, commend people. You also have Cosmic Churn for defeating Guardians in Crucible, bonus progress if granted for opponents defeated with Arc, Strand, or Void ability final blows. And the usual Bank Kill Repeat on Gambit for basically banking motes, defeating blockers, and defeating Guardians in Gambit. Basically, be an invader and kill the blockers. Then we also have Ultimate Champion for defeating combatants in any Nightfall strike on hero difficulty or higher, or no, defeating champions, basically anywhere champions spawn, earn bonus progress on higher difficulty in Nightfalls. And then mid-range calibration for using hand cannons, glaives, auto rifles, fusion rifles, and machine guns. Bonus progress for defeating guardians with said weapons. So that is all your seasonal stuff there. Now, in terms of our rotations about the week, of course, we will have Banshee, and then we also have Ada following up, and that is pretty much it for now. Now, in terms of Banshee on the front page, we have 4 craftable weapons. We have Chroma Rust, which is a rapid-fire auto rifle from Season of Splicer. No origin trait, but I genuinely would recommend this one. This is one of the oddly more consistent auto rifles that had ever been introduced. And you have all range options, but I'd probably stick with Extended Barrel. And this is a pretty solid setup, but of course, not craftable, so most people might just ignore it. Then we have Nezarek's Whisper, an adaptive frame arc glaive from Season of the Haunted, which comes with the Extrovert origin trait, which can be crafted, so if you need to buy 1 or 2 to red border it when you can, that now is the time. Same goes for Austringer, an adaptive frame kinetic hand cannon from the same season with the 2XS origin trait. Same, craftable, get one if you need it. And then we have 2 from Season of the Splicer. We have Sail Spy Pitch Glass, which unfortunately came around at the wrong time because linears are pretty much out of the damage meta nowadays, but it's still pretty solid roll. Vorpal not great on heavy, but rapid hit pretty good for sustained DPS. And of course we have Tarnished Metal, which is a personal favorite of the Arc Scout rifles nowadays because of access to Volt Shot. So if you can craft this one, I'd recommend doing it. Rapid hit Volt Shot is pretty solid. Shoot to loot in this day and age just because of how it got changed for the seasonal stuff, that works too. Then in terms of our main weapons, we have NEOD, which is a precision frame kinetic Hake SMG. Not that great of rolls, although, hang on, Vorpal, and I forgot Encore got changed a little bit. It might not be half bad. It's hard to say though. Precision frame submachine guns are not exactly great nowadays. And we have the old Sterling, a adaptive frame strand auto rifle that was just introduced this season. Pretty solid setup, range masterwork, barrel and mag perks, although Hipfire grip, not too great. I would not recommend this one in most cases, especially not auto rifles, maybe more single shot things. But if you want to give it a roll, that is a good way to get started. And we also have the Decide, a rapid fire frame shotgun. The old Future War Cult ones, no origin trait on it, it's void, rapid fire, so it's not the greatest archetype, but pretty solid perks overall if you need something close quarters. And then you have the Fioruta 59, a Suros void rapid fire sidearm, which these perks are more Crucible focused. This is one you can always have fun with, although Mike Hells might have taken the crown for rapid fire pistols. And then Palmyra, which is craftable, and while this roll is not half bad, if you need a good rocket for DPS, either Palmyra is a good option for something like explosive light autoloader, although there isn't a great array of rocket launchers, like Bump of the Night's good, Red Herring is kind of Apex Predator's good, but of course, if you don't have access to a raid, I would say this is a rocket launcher to get if you have no other options. And then we also have Nazridden, which is an Adaptive Frame Sword, Arc from last season, which, it's hard to compare. They came back when the class swords came back, and class swords always seem to be the best legendary swords, so it's hard to say this one holds up, but field tested seems to be a very solid origin trait. Now, aside from that, we need a blip downstairs. Also, a slight side note, in case this sounds a little awkward, this is after the first recording, so slight mid-editing. So, if you actually check in the inventory as well with the bait and tackle, the increased activity detection zone this week is in the cistern. So, if you wanted to farm out your fish, that is the place to go this week on Nessus for those public events. Now, when you check with Ada, and always petting the dog, because you always pet the dog when you pass Ada, we have Vitrified Chronology from Season of the Dawn, which is not too terrible of a shader. It looks pretty solid on weapons, and of course on my Guardian it does look pretty solid. Nice purple, magenta, pinkish glow, although it is a little standoutish considering it says nice silver and blue shader. Then we also have New Pacific Sync, which I think the Worn version was in it last week, but this is basically the I want to look like I just came from Titan and have no better color schemes, because this was the old, well, I think old, but basically the thing that came from Titan. We also have Dead Orbit Resurrection, which if you're looking for a solid black and white, Dead Orbit is always the go-to if you want a monochromatic look to yourself, although it's got some rough texture to it, so it's hard to say if anyone will really like it nowadays. But aside from that, that's everything with the reset update. Now, of course, like I say, this is booster, time to farm, that sort of thing, Deep Stone Crypt, time to farm, that sort of thing. It's always good on reset to hop in and see what else can be done, just because, you know, if you don't do it now, there's a chance you might not be able to do it later. On that note, my name is Matt Scorpion, and I will see you in the next video.